You take a fork in the road toward the Anselm Society Digital Pub. Inside is a raucous conversation on the arts, faith, and how many shopping days are left till Christmas? In the corner table by the fire are two people. One of them, in spite of herself, is checking shipping times on Etsy, just to be sure. That's me, your host, Mandy. Welcome to Believe to See, a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. Here at Believe to See, we explore the relationship between faith, art, and storytelling. Our goal is to connect the great story, the great stories, and our own stories so that we can better understand what it means to live with a Christian imagination. So today I'm very excited to welcome to the podcast someone I have talked about on the podcast before. Her name is Amanda Luedeke. She was if longtime listeners will know that things didn't work out with my first agent, and then I loved my second agent. Amanda is my second agent, and then she has helped me hook up with my current agent, Elisa. So Amanda, the reason she's no longer my agent, we didn't part ways or have an argument or anything. She just keeps getting promoted. She is president of McGregor Luedeke Literary Agency. She started with them in 2008, became an agent with them in 2010, vice president in 2018. So now that she's president, I think the only thing left would be queen, maybe. Empress, I'm not sure. But we're talking today about Amanda's new book, and it is called A Sense of Wonder. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. It's so fun to be here with you. And I would add to the whole journey of us. It turns out I am just bad at selling fiction. That is one thing that I discovered. And Mandy, you're such a talented writer. And I am just, cheering you on for sure.
We got such lovely rejection letters though, didn't we? They were so kind.
They were. There was really nothing that was embarrassing or bad. It was all well, why didn't you just say yes?
Yeah.
If you loved it so much. So
I know. Well, one day. So thank you for bringing that up, because as an agent, you are representing nonfiction primarily, or so just nonfiction, right?
Pretty much. I mean, there's a few projects here and there that squeak through, but usually they are from clients that I've worked with for a long time.
Right.
So, yep.
Well, I am very pleased with my current agent, Elisa. That is still so I'm still with the agency, but just I'm being represented by someone who represents fiction.
Yeah.
So that
She's
works
amazing.
out.
Yeah, it did.
So what possessed you to write a book?
Well, that's funny because you'd think I'd be really jaded by now, and I probably am. I probably am very jaded, but I think it was realizing, just wanting to go through that experience that I think many of us in the book industry, we have that desire to write something and to contribute in some way. But I never thought, I didn't know if it was possible, because I don't really have a big platform. I'm not a speaker going around nationally. I'm not, I can write fiction, but I just wasn't sure about that. And so I was just kind of waiting and, praying, not specifically about it, but just saying, God, this is a desire of my heart, and maybe it's just not in the plans for me, or maybe it is. I don't know. So this is just, whatever it will be is what it will be. And then it was about 4 years ago, I was in a church service around the holiday time. And my friend did a reading that she had put together, in which she invited us to, really feel be present with our bodies. And, I think they lit a candle, and it was a very multi-sensory experience within a church service that went beyond music and the typical, stuff that you do within a
beyond
service.
watching and listening.
Yes.
Right.
And it was very good. Like what she had written and what she said was very good. And it was in that moment that I was like, I wonder if this could be a book. And, I don't have a big platform. She doesn't have a big platform, but maybe if we team up,
Yeah.
it will be enough to get a publisher interested. So that is
two small platforms equal one medium platform.
right.
So.
Right. And we'll try really hard. There's also that. So yeah. So that's how it came about. Just her, offering that up to the church body, and then me thinking, I think there's something here that's different than many of the ideas that I've heard, being pitched about the holiday season. So.
Right. Well, I guess in that way you have a little bit of an advantage. You can see what's missing because of, like you said, the books that get pitched to you. So she is your co-author, Hannah Oplinger.
Yeah,
Oplinger.
Oplinger. Yeah.
Hey, you and I were talking about last names because we have unique last names. We share a first name and we share weirdness of last names.
Yeah.
So Hauk and Luedeke are interesting enough, but Oplinger.
Yeah.
Okay, so she is the woman that led. And she's a member of your church already, so you knew each other?
We knew each other. She's actually, and this isn't something that, it's not like all of who she is, but she is also the pastor's wife. And she has a master's degree in, I believe it's something with like spiritual formation and discipleship.
Oh, okay.
So it was also this like, okay, I don't have a theological degree. I don't have a Bible degree necessarily. I went to a college that had like a lot of Bible classes you had to take, but also just the comfort of like, if we're going to be, talking about the Bible and God, just that comfort level of doing it with someone who is more knowledgeable beyond just reading the text and interpreting it however, we want.
Right.
So that was also very, yes.
Yeah.
So
I love that. So when did you guys start writing this?
So the idea like that spark started about 4 years ago. And this is just the reality of the business. Mm-hmm. And I think our path was even longer than what typically happens for nonfiction. We got that spark of the idea. It probably took us, 6 months to put together a book proposal.
Okay.
And then it took me a year or a year and a half to shop it. And I was, sending it out and getting all these rejections. And of course, people were very kind because they knew me and they kind of had to be nice about it. Right. But just kind of waiting on, like, is someone going to pick this up? And it was, the publisher is Our Daily Bread, which some might recognize them for their little pamphlets that they do.
Yes.
And I was, some of my contacts within book publishing, I noticed that they were all moving over to work at Our Daily Bread. And I was very surprised by this. I was like, well, that's interesting. And so I went on the website. I was like, oh, well, they're doing really great stuff. Like their books look beautiful, very just very well done, very intentional about the publishing side of that ministry. And so that's when I decided to reach out and pitch the idea, and that's then where it landed. And then after that, it was like a 24-month publication wait, where they couldn't fit it into their schedule. I mean, it's a seasonal book, so that was also
that's part of the limit. Right.
Yeah,
right.
But they couldn't fit it in for like 24 months or something, and it has felt like the longest.
Long pregnancy, right?
Yes. And also this very wonderful adventure that every once in a while it would pop back into our lives. Like, oh, now we have to edit the book. Oh, now we have to talk about the book cover. Like, so it was just so like drawn out in that way that it's just been this lovely adventure that we are just so thankful for, because it's been so fun.
That's so great. Now, has Hannah published a book before? Is this her first book as well?
This is her first as well. So
that is
yeah,
so exciting, and how fun to share it with someone that you already had a connection to.
Yeah,
like a friendship and a sisterhood, and
it feels great to like journey this with her, and to not be alone.
you're like excited for each other almost as much as you are for yourselves, I bet.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
That's cool. No, maybe I need to collaborate with someone on something. I don't know.
Doesn't hurt.
I don't know. I'm pretty stubborn. I might be difficult to work with. But so when I saw that you were talking about this book on the socials, I immediately reached out and said, hey, let's talk about it on the podcast. And I even described it to my producer and co-host. I'm like, it's an Advent book. And so then you sent me what do you call these? The galleys or whatever.
The galley,
and so I printed out the giant PDF, which I'm so excited to have, but I'm going to buy the actual book. And then I started looking at it and I said, this isn't just an Advent book. It is so much. How would you describe it? I mean, it does sort of go around Advent, but how would you describe the book? You got to have your elevator pitch, right?
It covers that whole holiday season that just takes so much of our time and our attention and our energy. So it covers from Thanksgiving and it goes through the new year. So you are going through all of the American holidays.
Yeah.
And doing it. And it does include Advent. And then there's like a time for Christmas. So like we kind of hit on all the big notes. Right. But the hope is to just stay centered on the story of God's love for this world and, Jesus coming down as a baby and then reigning as king. Like that's the coolness about the new year that we get into. So it's so much, it's Advent, yes, it's Christmas, yes, but then it's so much more.
Right. Well, I mean, and I told you my plan was to blast through and read this book in its entirety in the last couple of days. But then I read the introduction and I said, no, I don't want to read this whole book because I'm going to save it and read it the way it was structured to be read, which let me read. I underlined a little bit of the introduction. So I'm just going to read that for our listeners. So at this time, and I skip around, so this is not whatever. Okay. At this time of year, we tend to disconnect. And it seems like that's your main problem that you're addressing. We tend to disconnect from others, from God, and even from parts of ourselves. For some, this disconnection happens when our focus is on the things we need to do. For others, this disconnection happens when our focus is so inward that all we can see is our own desires, longings, and year-end what ifs. Disconnection wreaks havoc in every aspect of our lives. And this next part I underlined like 4 times. We cannot flourish without being connected to God, others, and ourselves. It is how we were made. And so I absolutely loved that. And then I went on to read more about the senses, which I want to get into that in a little bit, because that's what makes this devotional more than your typical devotional, which no shade on devotionals, because I like to sit and read and ponder. But there is so much more to this, which you hit on a little bit when you were talking about Hannah's presentation at your church. But I want to talk more about this problem of disconnecting, which I know you and I are in very different stages of life. My kids they left me, Amanda. It's sad. So they're adults and they have left. And when they come over, I get so excited. It's ridiculous. But so I have, my Emmy is married and lives thousands of miles away in Ohio. My daughter Bethany is a little homeowner, nurse, all on her own. They don't need me in the same way. Notice I said in the same way. They still need me. But you are in the thick of it, right? Tell our listeners about your awesome children. I love your children.
Yeah, I have 3 kids. Roland is 7, Zelda will be 6 soon, and Brahm is 4. So they were born really close together, and they're just like this little pack of people that like hang together. And it is madness and has been madness. And but now we're in a season where all 3 of them are in school. So that's been a different time of me having more bandwidth to just, pursue other things, and which has been wonderful. But yeah, it's that time of life where like the holidays, especially, I was watching this, the social media. I don't know if it was a TikTok or whatever, but someone was like, you only have about 10 Christmases where it's like great with your kids.
That is true.
And then, because for when they're really young, it's just meh. And then there's this sweet spot of like 10 Christmases. Yeah. And then after that, it's just different. And you never know, like, are they going to be here? Are they going to be somewhere else? Are we going to have to reschedule? And just the beauty in that, in wanting to provide like this amazing family festive time. But also, despite like the good intentions, how that can just be so distracting. So that is just something that I really thought about as I worked on this book, is just my own approach to the holiday season. And I know it hits everyone. I know there are, people in business where at the end of the year, they've got their reports and they've got their budgets and they've got like all of these stressful decisions they need to make. And it's just, and yeah. So trying to, how can we have this season really speak to us, and we really enter into it from a posture of, yes, let's pursue the beauty and the good and the community and the adoration that this season provides. And let's also be sure to make room for the most important thing, which is just really experiencing that presence of God with us.
Yeah, because that was kind of the point of Jesus' birth, was his presence.
Isn't that, he came to earth. And so what do we do to celebrate that time? We just stay distracted and kind of avoid him, even though like we're supposed to be celebrating the fact that he came as a fragile baby. But we're just going to go like make Christmas cookies, which is an amazing thing to do. But,
Yeah. And I think about, I tend to despise commercials like anyway. I don't like marketing. I could go, it's a whole don't get me started thing. And one of my biggest aggravations, I was going to say pet peeve, but that's not strong enough. One of my biggest aggravations is the advertisements around Christmas. And it seems like one of the phrases, they talk about winning Christmas, like you're going to win Christmas. And it upsets me, because that is in the secular world, but let's not pretend it doesn't bleed over, because we live in this world. Yeah. And so this idea that if we're going to give our kids the wonderful Christmas, we think, oh, well, it has to be as beautiful as possible and as exciting as possible, and give them, all the people fighting over the last whatever special Barbie is out for Christmas. And we get so caught up in winning and achieving and getting it right. And there's so many different ways. Some people maybe they're not caught up at the consumerism part of it, but still maybe they have the pressure of, oh, I have to get it right. Oh no, we didn't do the Advent wreath this Sunday. I'm a failure. My kids are, I've scarred them for life because I didn't do the Advent candles, and I can't remember which Sunday is peace and which is joy. And, and we just get caught up in the, achievement aspect, and especially I feel confident saying this probably hits us moms harder, than other people. I guess that would be dads. Other people, whatever. Anyway, I think it falls on the mom as far as, the nurturing home thing. There are exceptions, I'm sure, but we're the ones that feel the failure if it doesn't go right, whatever that means.
Right.
And so then how many of us, and I mean, this is kind of reenacted in microcosm every Sunday morning when we're like, get in the car so we can go to church and worship. Rah. And so then like, how many tears have been shed by the children and the mother on Sunday mornings? And the same is true for Christmas. And so I feel like, well, here's another thing I underlined in your intro. This is under the subhead, human beings with human needs. And you said, when the holidays get busy and we begin to mentally and even physically disconnect, which, side note, I think that's just kind of how we cope. It's like a coping mechanism. We just go, oh, I just have to get through it. Then you go on to say, we miss out on the quiet but steady invitation from God to pause. He invites us to see, touch, hear, smell, taste, and sense that He is with us and at work. For our relationships with God are not one-dimensional. And then you say, and that is the hope of this devotional. So I really want to talk about those. You mentioned 6 senses, and we're not talking about, seeing dead people or anything like that. This is not Dia de los Muertos. That's not what we're doing. But that is what I think is such a unique aspect of this book. So could you talk about those 6 senses a little bit?
Yeah. So the senses, that's how we engage and experience the world around us. Right. And so that's what we have to fully be present. And the 6th sense, proprioception, which we call self-awareness in the book, because that's a little bit easier to understand moving forward, it's a sense that we have that makes us aware of where we are in time and space. So as we're sitting here, like you are aware, most of us able-bodied people are aware of where our feet are, where our legs are, where our arms are. We're aware of just our presence. You can sense the edge of yourself as you sit. You just know where that is, and you can, because of it, we can reach for things and grab them without knocking them over, and we can exist in this world.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Because of this sense that we have, and that sense just allows us to be fully in our body, fully present, and fully participating in the world around us. And can we, and we should use that sense and all of our senses to connect with God in ways that He is inviting us all the time. He's always there. His presence is there. He wants to connect with us. He wants to be close to us. And so this book explores that. What if we use the senses to really be present with Him and to step into that more with Him?
Yeah. And I really, it just acknowledges, like you said, and I think this is a little bit of a C.S. Lewis reference, we don't, no, I'm not going to remember the whole soul and body thing. We have a soul. No, we are a soul. We have a body. But as long as we are here in the incarnation part of our lives, of our existence, I think sometimes, especially puritanical roots, would tell us to just ignore the body and emphasize the soul. But God put our souls in a body, just like He put Jesus in a body.
Yes.
And so to ignore that is to ignore so much of the way that God wants to connect with us.
Yes.
I mean, even why did He make beauty? Because He wants to connect with us with our sense of sight. Why did He make beautiful music? Because He wants to connect with us through music or the voice of our little children. I love children's voices, or our, animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say that mindset of we need to distance ourselves from our body. That's telling God that He made a mistake.
Oh,
you shouldn't have put us in bodies.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? Like he put us in bodies for a reason. Like that
Mm,
was exactly what he wanted to do.
yeah.
And so it's important to be with our whole body and love him, and just instead of distancing ourselves from that thing that he gave us, our bodies, to just embrace it.
Yeah. And to use our senses to take in, but then also our, whatever, our literal voice and our hands to touch. I
Yeah.
mean, think about just the touch of a hand from someone you love, like the way that he has made our bodies an extension of our souls. Like that's how we express our souls,
Mm-hmm.
and it's how our souls receive him. So, I love it. And so that is one of the unique ways in which you guys have structured and written this book. You have these little symbols, so that each of your devotionals, there is, okay, you have a little intro here. So in how to use this book. So you talk about, each entry begins with an opportunity to prepare. And next to that section, there's a symbol. There's a little eye for sight and a nose for smell, etc. And that's just sort of giving the reader a signal of which part, which sense,
Mm-hmm.
you're asking, you as authors are asking us to pay attention to in that moment. So, like, let me see if I have an example. Oh, okay. So, day one, let's just start with day one. It's an ear. So, it's play a song that always brought you joy and excitement as a child, or perhaps a song that was on repeat during your high school or college years. Probably not mine. It was the 80s. Notice how the song makes you feel. Notice how something so simple can have such a strong impact. So that's just an example. Every single entry in this book has some little thing to do, and it's very easy things. It's not like, this isn't, oh, let's pile on one more tradition.
Right.
This is, let's center why we are engaging in Christmas in the first place. And I feel like it's, your focus is really just to help your readers be present and
Yes.
as fully as possible. So,
Yes.
yeah.
I would say the whole book is written in a way where if you want to read the whole thing, great. Like if you want to go through all of the days and mark them off, it allows you to do that. But it's also the kind of book that you could pick up and do 2 entries around Thanksgiving, and then 1 entry the next week, and 3
Mm-hmm.
entries the next week, and just kind of like, I love the idea of people just keeping this book, like pulling it out during the holidays. And each year, there's something new I'm reading. There's a different
Yeah.
entry that I'm going to explore. And yes, it walks you through doing some kind of sensory experience, typically very, very easy to do. And hopefully then you go, when you do that and then you read the text and
Right.
engage with the questions, then you can come away with just that the presence of God, feeling
Yeah.
that, because as you are fully present, engaging with scripture, then Jesus, he'll meet you there.
Well, it's the, I never can remember the verse numbers but everyone knows, be still and know that I am God.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite translations, however, says, cease striving and know that I am God. And so I love how this book is an invitation. It's not like, here's one more thing to strive for to win at Christmas. Do this devotional book. Ha.
Yeah.
It is an invitation to cease striving, take a breath, listen to music, look at something beautiful, smell some cinnamon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so the structure of the book, you have the sensory activity, and then some scripture, and then your beautiful writing, just talking about how, well, for your first one, you ask the reader to think of some Thanksgiving memories and the aromas and things that are part of that. And then there's a prayer and an encouragement. And so I just love that. I feel like each entry would take maybe 5-10
Yeah.
minutes just to like
Yeah.
take the breath and remember why. I feel like what is the point? And I think you have it structured, if like you said, if people want to, they can read it as a daily devotional. And I think you said you have it structured so that you could start no matter when Thanksgiving is, November 20th.
Yeah.
And then it goes through January 7th. I warned you of this. I have to give a little shout out to our Anglican listeners, particularly Matthew, my co-host, who is Mr. 12 Days of Christmas. So maybe he could tack on 5 extra days to make it work all the way to Epiphany. But, whatever.
See, well, this is why the beauty of like being in community with believers who approach it from different denominational, like that would have been a great input that, we just didn't think about it because that's just not something that we practice as much, with our
second
church.
edition Epiphany add-on.
I know, right? Well, it'll be like the expansion pack.
The Matthew Mellema expansion pack. There you go. Oh, he's going to love that. Okay. So, yeah. So I'm just excited about this. So, the name of the book is The Sense of Wonder. And I just feel like that really is what you're inviting everyone to.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think we as adults lose that? Because I think so. For me, I think one of the most fun things about Christmas is watching our children experience it, especially when they're small. Like, I used to go, okay, so spoiler alert, if anyone has their children listening, and we're about to reveal some Santa Claus secrets. So, cover your kids' ears. But it was so important to me to convince my children that Santa had visited that I would like leave half of the cookies. Like I would eat some of them and drink some of the milk. And I even, we always left carrots for the reindeer, and I would chomp them and break them off to make it look, in my mind, like a reindeer chomped it,
Oh, that's
not
great.
a person. So I went a little haywire, but it was just because what I was aiming for was to watch the children's faces like, oh, look. And I mean, they're 25, almost 26 and 29 now. And they crack up at the carrot thing, but, cause they're like, I can't believe you did that. I'm like, really? Do you know me at all? Anyway. So I think oftentimes we as adults, whether we have children or not, we know that it's one of the most fun things is to watch children's reactions. And it's because they are so attuned to wonder. So what happened? What happened to us, Amanda?
We got taken by the things of this world, our schedules and our to-do lists and our, trying to one up ourselves, trying to make sure that trying to be in control of our stories and our lives.
Oh, there you go.
That is, to me, that's, children, they have limited, I mean, sure, they fight for control. They're kids, they're going to fight to control their lives, but they, at the end of the day, they have very limited control and kind of just eventually go along with whatever is
they might cry that the ice cream melted, but it did.
Right. Whereas, adults, we can make sure that the ice cream doesn't melt if we do X, Y, and Z, like we are on top of it. And I think that's just where we start to lose the wonder, when we start to overly control, and that feeling also, or that sense of control can affect us in so many different ways. It's not just in a desire to be overly festive. Sometimes it's in I'm just not feeling it this year. I'm feeling down. I just don't care. I'm overwhelmed. I'm feeling, there's too much to do, too much to say yes to. Like, there's so many different ways that sense of wonder can be just kind of tilted and broken. And so, we believe as Christians that there is something beautiful for us in the coming of Jesus and his reign as king. And does being intentional during this time of year, will that bring that sense of wonder back? Not in the same way that it was before, but in a different way
Mm-hmm.
that will just completely change us, change our perspective, um, change our lives, change our
Right.
stories.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny when you think about it, it's not like Jesus had the perfect Christmas, the first Christmas.
Right.
They really would have liked to have a room in that inn, but that
Right.
didn't work out. And then I think, like you said, we tend to want to one up ourselves. And like, there's sort of, if a Christmas goes pretty well, then we're like, phew, yeah, whew, now we can relax. And
Mm-hmm.
then, okay, maybe I got to remember what I did this year so it works, quote unquote, next year. But hello, life happens. I mean, my
Yeah.
father died on December 27th, 1999, when my girls were very small. They were 4 and 1. And
Wow.
that, I mean, and he was sick. And we knew he was dying. So it's not, we didn't make it through Christmas and then this thing happened. He was sick in August, and that entire season was swept up with his illness and his impending passing. Um, I don't really remember that Christmas. It
No.
happened.
Yeah.
Jesus still was there, and then things just happen like that. And then obviously the subsequent Christmases were the anniversary of, the first Christmas without him was also the first, anniversary of his death. And then his birthday was December 29th. So
Mm.
like it was this kapow. So those things happen,
Yeah.
bad things. It's not like the world takes a break from suffering
No.
around Christmas. And so when we allow that um, to interrupt our seeking to connect with the Lord, that's
Mm-hmm.
just a tragedy, because he didn't promise everything would go well anyway, Christmas or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so if even in those difficult times, we are still called to cease striving. We are still called to rest in his presence. I was reading Psalm 1 this morning, and I love the image of the tree by the stream. Like, all the tree has to do is be in the place it was placed, is just stand there and let its roots grow and let its branches reach out. And that's all it's called to do. That's all it's asked to do, is just be there. And then the fruit will come in the season. That doesn't mean it's all going to be merry and bright, but all the more reason to seek him, to connect with him,
Yeah.
because he comes alongside us. He doesn't spare us from suffering. He walks in it with us.
Yeah.
And we're going to miss that if we are like, oh, I can't have a good Christmas this year because my dad is sick.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I appreciate that this book, it's not like a happy and bright, like,
It's not
you know,
going to fix everything. It's
no,
not, we are in a broken world.
yeah,
And that's why the story of God, the story of the Bible and Jesus is so important, because it offers hope for this broken world and for
mm,
things that just it's just not right. We know that he's coming to make the world right. And he's
yes,
coming to fix and to put things together and to restore. And so he longs to sit with us in
mm-hmm,
those times of hardship, in those
right,
times where it's like, this is not fair, this is not right. Those times of being angry at God, of
yes,
doubting his promises, doubting his goodness, like he wants to sit with us in those times.
right.
And this book, it attempts to help.
It's an
Like
offering. That's what I
yes,
feel like from you, is this is an offering from you and Hannah. And so what is your hope? What's your hope for this book?
I know my hope is, I just think about like what I want personally from this, because I want to really lean into this book this holiday season to keep my focus
Mm-hmm.
on the story of the Bible, the story of Jesus,
Yeah.
and to, you know, you talked about stories on this podcast,
Yeah.
and our stories many times take center stage this time of year. Like
Yep.
we're just so bent on things going a certain way, or business being a certain way, or relationships and family. Like if we can just, make everything go well,
right,
then we think we've won.
yes.
Right? You mentioned winning. Then we think we've won. And what if we just take a different approach, a slower, intentional approach, where we just take that 5 minutes to sit with our King, to think about what he did and what he is doing? And how might that shift the way that we approach this season, which is a beautiful season, but can also be full of so much pain and hardship and people around us in need. Like there's just so much going on that's beyond us.
Right.
And so taking that focus off of us and putting it on him, what might happen? That's my hope for this book. And for myself and for anyone who engages with it, to just that it offers a little bit of that. Here's one way that maybe we can try to step closer into really fully feeling the presence of God
and into his story.
Yes.
And seeing how our story is a manifestation of, is a little mini story of his story. And well, thank you for writing this book, and please pass my gratitude on to Hannah as well. I am very excited about this book. I'm pleased to get to talk to you, because you're not just my former agent. You're one of my favorite people, and you're just a good friend. And one of these days I'm going to meet your kids.
Yes. So. Well, if you said your daughter's in Ohio, if you're ever driving through Indiana.
Oh yeah.
Let me know.
I live in Indiana. Woo, look out. And I do want to mention, I don't know if the podcast listeners caught that your daughter's name is Zelda. And this is one group of listeners who is not going to think you named her after a video game. They're in it. They know.
They know that I named her after the floozy socialite who burned to death in an asylum. Yeah.
Whoa. This is a little bit of a side note. I was about to wind down the podcast, but I do have to say, I remember one of the funniest pictures that you posted when you were pregnant with Zelda, and you posed next to Zelda Fitzgerald's grave. Yes. And I can't remember the caption.
I can. Yes. I said Zelda in utero meets Zelda in groundo.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. So that's a nice little glad we wrapped up this very, sincere.
With a very Christ-like, edifying.
Yes, very Christ-like. Anyway, whatever. Gotta be real. Gotta be real here.
Yeah. Well, before we sign off, I want to say real quick. Yeah. If anyone wants to do this with a group or with their church or whatever, there is a resource guide on the publisher website. So if you go to ourdailybreadpublishing.org, and if you find the book on their website, then there's a resource guide that you can download to help you do a discussion group or a small group with it, or, whatever you might want. Ooh. So
hey, listeners, hit me up if you want to do one. I want that sounds like very Anselmy, as we say. That is our adjective that's very Anselmy. So, well, thank you again for writing the book. And thank you also for joining me on the podcast. This was a great excuse to talk to you. And I just appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Mandy.
So, as you can tell, things are winding down here at the Anselm Society Digital Pub. The fire is down to embers. The customers are trundling home, and you've polished off your final glass. Once again, Believe to See is a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. If you have a minute, we'd love for you to rate and review the show on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. We will catch you next time.